Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sons and Daughters of Liberty. Tonight is going to be Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind. I'm going to delve back into the indoctrination again. Got a few more things I want to add to it. A few other topics, things that we may have not questioned. I think it's always important to question things. I know it was something that was pointed out to me that I follow prepping and that stuff. We all know that. I never questioned the tiny homes and the tiny houses and the two-man, one-person domes and stuff. As we talk to people, interact with people, we start learning, more things. And it's nice to see that the youth, the millennials, younger generations, some of them are starting to get it. Some of them they're starting to get a little bit older and experience life. They're starting to question some of the things. Question some of the things that they've been taught, and question some of the things in their surroundings, which is awesome to see, because I know a lot of us, we've been waiting for the younger generations to start seeing and start questioning some of the things they've been taught. And I'm also going to delve into the UN Agenda 21 or Agenda 21 and Agenda 30 because they're all tied in. As you start studying and researching, you start seeing more and more things where things are tied in. Just like a friend pointed out to me this week, I had missed the post, but they pointed out that there was an article released that something that happened with the UN councils, and it had something to do with them releasing an article about our poverty rate, how we were ranked the highest in the world for our poverty rate. Like it was like 85% poverty, and that we needed to change it. That they could, give steps to change it. And it was funny because we get caught up in the label game, red, blue. But there was a couple Democrats that sounded off on it and really sounded off on it. I mean, Nikki Haley sounded off on it, as well as several Republicans. I mean, we need to realize it. You know, United States is a sovereign nation. It's our country. No other country should influence or dictate our policies, but it's happening over and over. Many of our politicians have pushed issues, and this is just not in the federal, it's in the state levels as well, as we see with things that are going on in California, Chicago, New York, and about 12 other states trying to adhere to these UN agendas that does not represent or reflect what our country is. In fact, it's many of the things that some of the problems we're seeing with land grabs. Oh, you got a stream running through your property, so you no longer own the rights to that stream. You know, these are the very things that we don't question, or we don't connect the dots all the way to. Just like the tiny homes thing, which I kind of, when it was pointed out, it's like, what are you getting at? And I got to thinking, listening to her, well, reading what she was typing back, what we were typing back and forth. I started to get a new perspective on that concept because it's very popular with our youth. It's it's a little bit real popular in the prepping communities. Sometimes we don't realize the full extent of psychological warfare and psyops. They'll extend it into every facet at every level. It's in our face every day. Sometimes we get numb to it. Sometimes we're just trying to tune it all out, and we miss stuff. We miss the questions, simple things like tiny homes, domes, pay $400 to rent in a community of that are community housings that are dome corporate living or cooperative living. What the hell? Some people are like, "Oh, you're stretching." Am I stretching? Anybody read up on the agendas 2021 and agendas 30, how they want to make a better world for all of humanity. They want to control how we live. Little free spirit. They want to bring us into clustered communities, so you have less. Because when you start dealing with the tiny homes and stuff, you're cutting out the things that you're cutting out all your wants. You're stripping yourself down to necessities. You're starting to uniform yourself. And it's being pushed more and more. There's, I think it was in Baltimore, somewhere in Baltimore or Maryland, that area, they started building on vacant lots tiny homes. Start building a community. And it's a lot of the youth. They get the idea that, that they're cramming people into less space. Less space means more buildings you can build instead of having a backyard or having your nearest neighbor, you know, 100, 200 yards away from your house and property. They're, look at the construction of new homes. They're getting smaller. You're not seeing the two-story homes. Nobody's questioned this. We blame it on 2008, the crash, you know, inflation. We blame it on how, construction's been down. I've been seeing a lot of, excuse me, thank you. I've been seeing a lot of homes being destroyed, older homes. Just in my area, I've watched 4 brick houses. I mean, some of these were 100-year-old brick houses. Nothing wrong with them. Just demolished, removed. Nobody questioned the junk for clunkers. Oh, that was a UN, an environmental part of the UN's policy for the Agenda 21. I don't know why I keep wanting to say Ugenda. Maybe because it's kind of fits, because it's the UN's agenda, not our country's agenda. I think it's more of a proper term. You know, we get caught in these areas that we don't realize we're going through a recession, so junk for clunkers getting money back for your old cars is great. And they want to say, well, it's also going to be protecting the environment. They want to tax you for environmental stuff. Yeah, I know I'm right on target because I'm watching my feed cut in and out, not even showing you as a viewer right now. So we don't question these things. We don't question technology as it comes in because that was another part of the push. We're going to get cleaner cars. We're going to take your rights away to be able to drive. That's coming, guys. They're trying to push that. Thankfully, the technology keeps screwing up, but they keep pushing it. They want you to be self-reliant on a system. They want you to be reliant on them, slowly and slowly stripping your rights away. We don't question this, but we get indoctrinated because we get indoctrinated in our school systems to that this is what we need to be doing. This is what we need to do to protect our earth. This is what we need to do to clean up the pollution. But yet, we've seen how they didn't punish China, not even a little bit. China has the worst pollution ever. They didn't have to pay any penalties for it. They were pretty much exempt. It's well over 2030. Nobody questions these things. Why, if it's such a big issue, isn't the biggest violator isn't being punished? Then yes, but on this, there was several people that questioned it. But we know how that works. And they suffered the consequences of it. As I apparently am suffering the consequences of talking about it right now. Which, me, I don't care. It's not the only platform that this is being streamed to. I can play their games just as well as they can. I know the tricks of the trade. The difference is I don't use it to manipulate people. I use it to make people think, question things. We never questioned the tiny homes, the domes, but now they're starting to be built. And here, 2 people can rent this dome for $400 a month out in California. We're going to build a community. Here, let me give you a link. You want to join in? Because you lost me with those abbreviations. Actually, I'm going to do something a bit different tonight. Links in the description. Links in the chat room, guys. If you want to join in on the stream. I need to close a couple things out. I'm having issues here. But you know, like I said, been talking to Christina Taft a lot because I'm trying to, help her with some of the things she's working on with her website platform, because it's what we all need right now is a new platform to invest in, go to. And she brought this up. She lives out there, telling me about these things, how she's starting to see the indoctrination. She's starting to question these things, the things that they were teaching her, things that are teaching her even on the college level. And it's amazing that it was, I know it was bad, but I didn't realize it. I underestimated exactly how bad it was. And she's telling me about these tiny homes, these domes going up. And it got me thinking. It was like, well, we never questioned anything because we always blamed it on the recession. But we know how the markets work. We know how all that stuff works. It's easily manipulated, easy played with. I mean, Dabu's done countless videos of how they play with it and try to force it to go up, down. It's all a system that's meant to control. And we're starting getting more into the Agenda 30 stuff. We're talking about that's what they want. They don't want you to have no control, no freedoms. They want it to be one currency. Oh, wait, we know where that's going. They want to be the ones controlling everybody, dictating how much you make in wages. But they don't want to talk about how other countries deal with homeless problems. I can hear you.
Hey. Good evening, everybody. Free Spirit in the house. How you doing, Drew?
All right.
You got lost on the abbreviations. That was Q5. In other words, you were coming in crystal clear, both audio and video. Um, that's also known as sideband talk or ham talk. um, but you're right. I was actually watching a Invisible People video today, and they were a woman that had been living in a tiny home out in California, had her tiny home. She was evicted out of her tiny home, and all of her worldly possessions chucked in the dump. And she has a part-time job cleaning an office and clear on the other side of Los Angeles. And it doesn't pay a lot of money, but a job is a job, and
not
those
out in
are hard.
California. It's not.
It's those are it, if you can get a job cleaning an office for 2-3 hours, 3-4 nights a week. That's a big that's a few bucks, but yet she wasn't allowed to use the restroom facilities in the office building.
Oh yeah, they got all kinds of crazy laws. And by the way, that's she's. I know why she was living in a tiny home because she's pretty much well. I know people that live out in California. I know people that's eventually finally moved and seen that what we've been saying about how it's cheaper living out here towards the east, or even in the mid east or mid, the Central Plains and stuff. Because for a two-bedroom apartment, they were paying close to $3,500.
Yep. I know the house. It's a 3-bedroom house right next door to me. Is the last people that lived there paid 800, and the individual that owns it, if he can sell it, great. Otherwise, he's going to jack. Now, this is a 3-bedroom, approximately maybe scarcely two. It's right around 2,000 square feet with a moderate backyard, enough place to park one vehicle off street during the winter on a. Keep in mind that I live on US Highway 18, right in my front yard, less than 50 feet from my bedroom, literally. And this house right next door, same thing. So you park your car in the driveway at your own risk. Getting in and out is a kind of like trying to drive at Sears Point or Sonoma, call it what you will, or trying to drive in New York City. It's a personal challenge, especially in the winter. And they're talking about jacking the rent to $1,200 a month if they can't sell it. An average house for a 2 to 3 bedroom is $800 to $1,000, and if you have a pet, and that's even if you get a letter from a doctor stating that you require a service dog, they can still charge you up to $500 in security deposit or more, even if it is a service dog or therapy dog or cat. Doesn't matter. Now, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm allowed if I want. Now, fortunately, I own my home. But even if I wanted, say that if I rented this place, it would cost me $500 to $1,000 to bring a service dog into my home for a down payment for any potential inside or outside damage the dog could do, and the likelihood most landlords never give that deposit back for that animal. 90% of the landlords never give an animal pet deposit back, whether it's a service thing or not. That's just in my area.
Yeah, we're lucky still in our area. Our area, you can still. I mean, I'll put it this way: my brother's got a pretty much like four-bedroom house, full basement. I mean, full basement, the size of the house, basement, with additional 4 rooms in the basement. And that's not counting the huge living room, huge dining room, medium kitchen. 2-story, and he's paying $500, for the loan, which includes the property tax and insurance.
Oh hell, and I thought my house payment was bad.
I mean, for what some people are paying, like especially out in California, you could actually be renting 3 houses here in Ohio. And I mean, nice houses, not apartments.
I got a question that I want to pose to your viewing audience, and I was laying back thinking about this last night, and I woke up thinking about this morning. And this occurred somewhere right around the first Bush 41, happened right around the 40th presidency. I remember back in school, there was 7 prerequisites. Who remembers what the prerequisites were for somebody to hold the highest office in the land? Does anybody remember
You know
where?
what?
I remember majority of them, but do you remember what the 7 were? I know one of them was that they had to have served uh, during active duty in the military, and that they had to have passed the state bar, and possibly one term as a senator.
Yeah, that's not even not irrelevant. How many presidents have we have had that now that has not served?
Exactly, and
See
I
that for Bush, they changed it to where it was you at least had to have been in the reserves.
right.
Now, then they changed it again after that. You know, it's just they've stripped so much out of it. I can't remember the full 7 anymore because it's no sense remembering it because it doesn't apply.
Nope,
But
it's down to
welcome,
4.
NC dude, Von On. Hope I'm pronouncing it right. I've been on a roll for butchering names here of late.
It's down to 4. I looked it up right shortly before the last election cycle. Uh, while everybody was parading around on stage and whatnot, and I put all the candidates' names down on a piece of paper, and I went to the actual candidacy, or went to the actual presidential website and looked at the criteria, and it actually stated that there is only 4 uh, things in criteria now that are required for people to run for the office of the President of the United States. 4. And I thought that was just a little bit off.
Yeah, that's what I
A
think.
little
People don't go.
bit
Nobody
off.
questions anything. Some of the stuff in the 7 I never agreed with anyway. Because
Well,
our forefathers, and I know because I've read my forefathers' journal, they designed it so anybody could become elected official. Anybody could be president. That's straight in the journals. And that's somebody that helped write a lot of the laws, including served on the Supreme Court back then.
correct.
We've gotten so far away from what our founders have. And our founders made a huge mistake. They trusted people. They believed in what they wrote. By doing so, they left those that were still loyal to the crown, we called them loyalists back then, into our government. And we've been dealing with those families ever since. We're still tied to the crown, no matter how much people want to not believe that anymore. Just like people don't realize how many of our congressmen, state elected officials, they write policy, and this is something me and you kind of got on, and I'm going to quickly bring this back to that subject when we're talking about the UN. That's my focus because it's their agendas that so many states that are becoming rogue states are pushing towards. We're seeing UN agendas in our education system. Some of you guys don't even realize, when I first talked about this, I brought up, somebody sent me a link to check it out. You need to watch this what is it now? WWE
Yep.
pay-per-view event. Sent me to a link that's, free. I'm not paying for it. And within the first 5 minutes, I'll tell you which pay-per-view event it was because you can buy it now on DVD. Was the Greatest Royal Rumble, the one they did in Saudi Arabia. Within the first 5 minutes of the opening broadcast, the first thing they were talking about was the UN Agenda 30, diversity thing, right there. And we all know, those that are aware, when you're going to those type of events, you got your young kids, because that's who they still draw to, is the youth. You got all the lighting effects, and most people, I don't think they even understand what I say when I say look into mesmer effect.
Yep.
They don't understand the music, the rhythm, how they're put into a trance. They're already put in that trance state when they're talking about Agenda 30 and diversity, how great it is. But yeah, it was so great, they were talking about it, that not a single woman competed there that night.
Yeah, I
Where's the
noticed that.
No, that's like I was trying to say. We don't question things. We don't question when tiny. Well, you're making all kinds of noise in the background.
Yeah, I'm doing taking care of my kids at the same time.
That people don't realize how much of this crap's being pushed. They talk about homelessness. They talk about the UN even tried to rule on a native Indian land that we had to tell them, the United States, you got to give it back to the natives. They're pushing immigration. But yet, let's keep it real. The immigration issues is illegal. And technically, if you want to get downright technical about it, you're invading our country. If you're not going through the embassies for asylum, you're not going through the embassies trying to get work visas, visas to visit, special permission to visit, you've committed a crime. That's why it's called illegal alien. That's why it's called illegal immigration. But yet we have Democrats that will not use the word illegal. I've got a whole video. You can sit there and watch it, 4 hours of it. Watch the hearing debate that they had on immigration just last year. Watch the difference between Republicans and Democrats, those who are opposing the bill and those who are for the bill. It was black and white. One side would use immigration. They're immigrants. The other side would call it for what it is, illegal immigration. When you cross over our border without permission, you've committed a crime, which is immediate deportation back. You cannot get a visa, cannot get a work visa, can't get special education visas for, I think it's like 5 years, because you committed a crime. And not only have you committed a crime, you're invading our border. Just this week, caught an article talking about somebody that's running for president in Mexico. They use the label Marxist. We know socialist, same thing. Labels are all the same. We just try to give them meaning while they distract us. This is what I thought was funny. You're running for president, but you're telling the citizens of your country to flee to our border, cross our border. But yet the UN says, well, it's all about humanitarian. It's never about our country. When it comes to our country, oh, we don't agree with you putting your country first. But yet every country that said that, Trudeau and Mac or Mac, what is it her name? Not Macron, Mackerel, who said that, you know, you're putting your country first. You're putting your country above G6. We're supposed to be united. No, we're supposed to put our country first, just like they put their country first all the time. Then we get dealing with, and we're talking immigration. We're just not talking here. We're talking about the epidemic that's happening worldwide, that's being forced to happen. Because if you look at it, a lot of these refugees is because, guess what? You can find UN boots in these areas that's forcing these people into refugees, forcing them to flee. So now they want to say, oh, it's going against our Agenda 30 or Agenda 30. I'm just going to keep calling it Agenda 30, guys, because that's what it is. It's UN. You're going against what we're trying to achieve by 2030. They don't want no country to have their sovereignty. So let's go back and start questioning a lot of these economic problems, these recessions, these crashes. And I've pointed this out in the past. Look at these countries like Venezuela and the countless others that have just collapsed. Look at these countries that become socialist countries and they all collapse. The next thing you know, you see communism take its place. Those are just labels because it's still being pushed and adhering to agendas like the UN. You know, let's not to be a, I don't even know what label I'd use, Russia lover, but Putin's one of the few that always stands up against the UN. He's against the policies. Why? Because those policies try to take away a country's sovereignty, try to take elected officials that the people, we can argue back and forth how rigged theirs is, which we probably know it probably is, but then again, I don't know. I don't live there. I've never lived there, but I have lived in Brazil, and I've seen how that works. It's not good. We play, we get caught up and distracted, and that's part of their tactics. We have Facebook saying we're adhering to Agenda 30. We're adhering to EU and UN laws, but yet they're companies based here in the United States. He's a goddamn American. I think they want to call him a turncoat, traitor, loyalist. What he is, because it's what he's promoting. Stripping people of their rights, their freedoms, controlling the narratives, what you can say. They only want one narrative. They want uniformity, which is something I missed with the tiny homes because it was cool. But then again, I miss the warning signs, the fact that they want uniformity. They want you to have less. They want you to be put into communities. Oh, then they'll say it's because of environmental reasons. We don't want you building and destroying the land, so we're going to control your community settings. And we kind of hit on the dangers of the UN on her show last week about things like Chicago, their mayor calling in the UN. The fact is, we know UN has people here. We know we've seen their policies in places like Texas, of all places, California, Chicago, New York. The concept and idea of sanctuary cities is a UN-based concept. It's not an American concept. We have laws in place for that. The system's broke. It's always been broken. It needs fixed. But they don't want to fix it. Not right. But you start talking about it, you're a racist. You're a bigot. Oh, you're a Democrat. You're a Republican. Anything they can throw a label at you as, you're a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm a free thinker and I question everything. When I see something that I think needs to be questioned, I'm going to talk about it. I'm not going to
Well,
let somebody dictate what I can and can't question. Go ahead.
well, one of the things, and this kind of falls right in line. I was just before I seen you went live. I was watching something that happened not far away from about 4 hours from my city, um, where I live, in small little hole in the wall in Wisconsin out here, and it's up in the Twin Cities. And when you see a area with continual systemic issues and you see the same problems perpetuate over and over and over again and again and again and again. And please don't get me wrong. Don't mistake me for somebody that is anti-establishment or anti-law enforcement, because that is so far from the truth that it's not even funny. But when I look at back at the events of the past week, I sit and I scratch my head and I question everything. And then I look at the 2030 agenda, the 2021, 2025 esque situation, that it is all built on indoctrination, oppression, and population degradation and population suppression. These are all three very hot button topics that nobody wants to talk about. They don't want to talk about it because it doesn't affect them. It doesn't go into their narrative. It's not happening in their backyard, or it's not affecting them directly, or if it is affecting them, it's affecting them in such an indirect, distant manner that it's not making their lives uncomfortable.
See, but that's the
Well,
illusion of it, because it is happening in their very backyards.
and I've been known to be one of those. I make people very uncomfortable, and I make them think. I make them stop, and I make them look at absolutely everything from every angle. Now, I was not in the Twin Cities last night, so I don't know what was going through that officer's mind. I don't know what was going through in the other multiple events that have happened in the Twin Cities. I was up there when Mr. Castillo got blown away. I was up there because I was only about 3.5 blocks away when that event happened. But I also do know that I was not out in Pennsylvania this week when an individual, after having been sworn in and less than 90 minutes later, having blown away somebody within the first 90 minutes of being on the job. And then come to find out, the same officer had multiple write-ups with the Pittsburgh University Police Department for almost identical situations and problems. And I question. And then I look at tonight's topic about the mind indoctrination and the robotizing of not just our youth, but this also stems out to to some of the people in our military. And when they get called on the carpet for something, before they get thrown in the brig, their last words in court are always, "I was just following orders." And I hear the cops beat cops say the same thing all the time. I'm just following orders. Well, sometimes you gotta break rank. Sometimes you gotta do a little bit of critical thinking. Sometimes you just gotta put your foot down and say, hell no, I've had enough. I need to think for myself, and the decisions that I make right here, right now, are going to reverberate not just throughout the rest of my life, but potentially generations to come. That things need change. And the interesting fact is change, when it comes to indoctrination, we have to reverse that. And that change starts here. It starts now. And it's what we do, and it's what we say, and how it is perceived from this point forward, how we perceive that. Now, unfortunately, I have to go to work at 7:30, so I can't hang out long tonight. I got to work tonight, unfortunately. I got to be to work at 8, but I have to be heading up the road. It's only about a 20-minute roll to work, so it's not going to be too bad, but I got to cover for somebody tonight. So I can't be here all night, but the bottom line is that mind indoctrination begins and it starts with us, and how we take that out to those around us and spreading that word to others and carrying that message to others and continuing to beat that mind. That's why Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind is one of them shows that it not just grows on you, but you'll find that you'll go back and you'll listen to that same episode 2 or 3 times. And if you've not went back and listened to some of the other early episodes of Ramblings, not to toot the horn or whatever, but I'd encourage people to go back and listen to some of the early shows that Drew has done on this on Ramblings of the Chaotic Mind, because it is very in depth and it is very worth looking into, as well as part 1 of this topic as well.
Right. Now, see, that's where people think they catch. There's a lot of illusions in things. Blaming the cops. They want us to blame the cops. They want us to blame people.
Oh, exactly.
They want us to blame the whole. No. It's not the whole. It's the bad apples. Every group has a bad apple.
Exactly.
Every religion has their bad apples. They use these things to pit us against each other, to divide us, to manipulate us, cause events to happen. To the officers, I would never want to walk a mile in their shoes. I actually wouldn't even want to put their shoes on, because when they put their shoes on, put that uniform on, their life is in God's hands as soon as they walk out that door to go to work. They don't know who they're going to encounter that day, what they're going to encounter that day, the stress. I mean, for real, PTSD happens with the police.
Well, if people would look at how the training that cops go through.
It's changed over the years, though. Now it's more military style training,
which even predisposes them, even by the time they leave the academy, they have already encountered and under clinical definition already suffer some form of PTSD just from academy training alone. So by the time they come out of that academy, that's why they're so gung-ho, and they shouldn't be put out on the streets alone for the first 2 to 5 years.
But it's just not that. It's also the indoctrination of the media.
Right?
Every time somebody does something, it becomes either a racial incident or it's a bad cop. And yes, there are bad cops. But they get it, then we get into the double standards. But it gets so politicized, and people see it. It used to be your cop would sit there and talk to you, talk to the kids. Now you got people, don't talk to my kids. They've gotten such a bad name. That's indoctrination itself. Why do they got such a bad name? Well, media never helps them. The fact that they never police their own doesn't help them. And I have a big issue when it comes to that. Because there's a lot of good cops. They need to start policing their own. They need to be demanding that these bad apples are held accountable and charged like criminals that they are when they commit a crime.
Well, one of the things that I'll have to go out on this statement. One of the things that I really think needs to happen nationwide, for all branches of law enforcement, is that, and again, note when you sign your name on that dotted line to be in law enforcement, the pay for a rookie officer is not all that great.
They don't get paid what they should be getting paid at any level of their career.
No, they don't. They don't. But if you've been involved in an OIS, or also known as an officer involved shooting, automatically the city's insurance company needs to drop you and force you to carry your own liability insurance, as some jurisdictions have already mandated, like Charlotte Mecklenburg. I think they finally did get that passed late last year, that if you've been involved in 2 or more violent altercations, that you must carry your own insurance, which is quite pricey. But I think it was Charlotte, the city of Charlotte and Mecklenburg, South Carolina, that actually got that through. And there are a couple other cities in the country that mandate the cops, because they're smaller communities that mandate their cops to carry their own insurance. And in those smaller communities that mandate the cops to carry their own insurance, you are less likely to see cops pulling their firearms, but rather they're using less lethal, or they're using good old-fashioned police talk and trying to talk to people like they're a human being, and not trying to be that it's a badge, not a license to shoot type mentality. That they're doing good old fashioned police work just like they did back in the 70s and early 80s. And I think to some extent that's what needs to happen.
Well,
But
there's a lot of things that needs to happen. They need to start interacting with the communities more, and the communities need to get off their backs and start, interacting with them, because their job is to protect and serve. That's what they're supposed to do. But we've gotten away from communication. That's another part of the indoctrination.
right, and a lot of that has to do
Don't trust
with,
the cops.
and a lot of that has to do with the cops going in full battle rattle with their cop
Hmm.
dog and body armor on and uh, all this other stuff. What happened to Officer Friendly going in, leaving his pistol belt in his secured in his police vehicle on his driver's seat, and going in and talking to the kids with no weapons on him at all and being officer friendly.
We've gotten away from the days of having the negotiator.
Exactly.
I mean, right now it's even with SWAT situations. They don't want to drag it out. They don't want to bring a negotiator, and they just much rather we got a sniper up here, get the shot, take it.
Yep.
And that's not the way it should be. See, but where does all that come from? Where does all these policies and ideas and come from? There's an
That
like I said.
that comes from Agenda 21.
Hmm.
And that's a topic that I'd like to get into down maybe tomorrow or the next day when I got a lot more time on my hands because I got called in on an emergency shift.
Just like I know you weren't an advocate of this, but when I was going to school, we had dare officers there almost every day,
I remember them.
and it was good. But why? You had an armed police officer in the school. On top of that, us kids were used to interacting with a sheriff, a cop. It taught us respect, kind of, but it taught us, there was that interaction, there was that community interaction, knowing that this person had wants, you know, to serve the community. We've gotten so far away from that aspect. Now, every time something bad happens, it's every single cop's fault. You know what happens when we start blaming every single cop and blaming them that's every single one of their fault? They get pretty jumpy. They
Yeah, they
get,
do.
it's called paranoia and fear. Well, this just happened. I don't know if I pull this guy over, he might look like he might be reaching for his wallet, but it might, I'm so, it gets to that point. You see that, and that's media's fault. That's the media's fault for publicizing it. That's the Obama administration for giving them all this hardware that's more militarized, trying to control people through fear. The fact is, there's bad apples. I want you guys to understand that. We got to stop, and this starts with us. We have to stop blaming the whole. We need to blame the bad apple. Nobody else, not the organization group, the bad apple.
Yep.
Because if we start blaming the whole, we're inducing our own form of indoctrination. Our communities start to no longer trust. We have to find trust. That's why with anything when we start talking about the UN agendas, we start seeing there's a fear tactic there. They want to push racism. They want to push immigration. You need to accept these refugees. You're part of the UN. You need to take so many in without proper really vetting. You need to lower your standards. But if the UN was so much about humanitarianism as they claim, what about our goddamn homeless? My message to California: you care so much about people? You want to call them immigrants legal when they're illegal? What about the homeless problem you have in your very state? To all you sympathizers that want to sympathize for the illegal immigrant, what about the homeless people in your own backyard? Those are U.S. citizens. Those are supposed to be your countrymen, your brothers and sisters. But you want to place somebody that's broke our laws, come into this country illegally above them? You guys need to take a step back and look in the mirror. We have all this stuff around us. We have all these problems. We have a school system that's teaching UN ideology, forcing them to violate our own constitution when it comes to religion. Oh, you can teach Islamic stuff in the classroom, but you can't teach Christianity. You can't teach Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, my bad, apologies, and any other religion, but you got to teach Islam. The worst part is they want to teach the radical version of it into our schools. They don't want us to know what our kids are learning in our history. You know, they don't want to know what they've removed from our history. Oh, we need to remove these monuments because they're racist. When you ask anybody that knows their history, and I can show you countless of videos of black African people stating the Constitution, the Civil War was never about slavery. It was about taxations and how we were forcing something that they didn't want to hear with. It had nothing to do with it. Was all about money, corporations. It was never about the slavery. In fact, for all you Yanks out there, Abraham Lincoln's own words, go read them, what he had to say about it. If he had the choice, he would not free the slaves. He did it to win the war, so we could outproduce them, outman them. I don't see us ripping down the Lincoln statue, but by his own words, hey, and I'm against taking down any statue. It's the fact they're not being taught real history. They're being taught Agenda 21, Agenda 30, indoctrination. Same thing as we're seeing it in our college systems. They're not no longer teaching our kids anything but indoctrination. Well, and we've gotten so caught up in everything. Why? Well, we got to work two jobs. Both parents have to work just to put food and clothes on our kids. The system was set up clear back 1992 was when they first came up with agenda, well, when they first told us about Agenda 21. 1992. And they've changed and implemented and added. Then we see the rise of Common Core. We see the indoctrination of using repetitive words to numb you to things before they unveil their real plan. You know, nobody wants a free society, a free country where people have rights and freedoms. It goes against these people's idea of control. What they fear is losing that control, not being able to manipulate and control people. We can take a look at all the systems, and trust me, we're going to take a look at a lot of the systems this coming couple weeks. I'm going to do a whole series on broken systems and how they've been abused, manipulated to influence you. This is worldwide. Our education system is so broken. It's not even funny. And that's the worst part of it is because that's the future generations being taught this thing. Why do you think it was so important to use our children to advocate as advocates for going after the Second Amendment? Why do you think every major media network would not show those that were protesting for the Second Amendment? Why didn't those major news networks report on the fact of how many people were suspended, gave detentions for refusing to participate? Oh, yeah, that's right, not a single one. You see, that's one of the huge, biggest problems with the United States. In the world's eye, and especially in the UN's eye, we all have guns. We all have access to a gun. Somewhere, we have an access to a gun. So, we go back to the poison the well philosophies, old tactics. Well, flood your country with illegal immigrants, refugees, force you to take them in. Well, what does that do? That burdens our economics, that burdens our medical and health care systems. Where are we going to put all of them? Let's build these tiny homes. Great idea. Why aren't you putting the homeless in those tiny homes? Huh? There's my question to you. Why aren't you putting the homeless in tiny homes? Oh no, we want to charge rent $400 for a dome. For a two-person dome. And call it cooperative living. Yeah, I think a lot of the preppers out there, yeah, we kind of missed that one, didn't we? Because it sounded so good. The idea and concept of it sounds great. But what's the agenda? Why the push? Why is our youth so attracted to it? I remember growing up, I wanted things, not less things. I wanted to have things. Can't have things when you live in a tiny home, a tiny house that's meant for one person or max two people. You guys ever question that? Why? Ever question how uniformity it is? Oh, it's less impact on the environment. Trick good. It worked for a while. It took a 25-year-old that's starting to wake up and see what things and starting to question things to question it. I just happen to be the lucky bastard that she asked the question to. And it made me question. It's like, how did I miss that? Why didn't I ever question that? Well, because it kind of sounded good. I could see the catch. You know, 'cause, I'm old school. I like the idea of having a log cabin in the middle of the mountains on some 10 acres of property. Log cabins can be big, they can be small, but in most cases, we're going to build a log cabin, single person. It's going to be just right. It's not going to be 2 stories. It's not going to be 200 years old like this house. Because I don't have a huge family. I have no need for that. I see the appeal. We never question why they kept on always, even my generation, we never question why. You need to go get your degrees, your doctors before you have kids. Well, shit, by that time, I'm pushing 30. Now I got to focus on my career, get it started. In my mid 30s, almost 40. Hmm, Nobody questioned that in my generation, and the couple generations after. We didn't question those things. We listened. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So that way we're established. Yeah, I agree. We should be somewhat established before we bring something so precious into this world. But it went too far. My parents were in their 20s when they had me. Many of my friends, their parents were in their 20s. See, they'll blow up and inflate the numbers of teenagers having kids, which it did happen. It was happening, but they blew the numbers out of proportion. I think the whole time I was going to school, only five, and it's counting my whole high school. It's counting freshman, junior, senior, sophomore. We only had five the whole time I was in school, but it was happening. But they said, "Oh no, you need to." That's when they started pushing. You need to wait, wait, wait. We didn't question. It made sense. Just like we never questioned the junk for clunkers. But now we're starting to see the rise of technology. Let me tell you guys something. Think those self-driverless cars are cool? Yeah, they'll be cool until you say something that goes against the status quo and they hit the lock buttons and drive you right to the police station. Or just stop and lock you in the car until law enforcement or whatever they have that time set up. Yeah, not so cool, is it now? Why do they keep pushing all this? Stay home. You don't need to leave your home. You can order and have your food delivered to you. You can have your package delivered to you. Our delivery guy will have a phone that has your lock sequence on it. We'll have a camera right here that's facing the door with a microphone. They'll be able to open your door, put your package, your delivery right inside your house. That's the trouble. Nobody questions the tech. You no longer needed to go to theater to watch hardly any of the new movies. You can get a virtual ticket. In fact, you can spend 35 bucks, which is, I agree, this is a hell of a deal. 35 bucks, I can get a virtual ticket, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K Ultra, and digital download. I get five things for 35 bucks, and I don't have to go to the theater. I can watch it right from my own home the day it releases. That's awesome. Plus, I get the other four things. Why don't they want you going to the theater? Why don't they want you spending time at the checkout line? Walmart, for example. Stop and go. Or shop, whatever it is. Let me see here. I actually pretty sure I have some evidence on this. I know I do because I took some pictures. I've been meaning to talk about this. I just gotta find them. I doubt they're in my evidence folder. Yes, they are. Well, maybe if it opens up. Yeah, here we go. Something no one questioned. I thought it was odd because now you just put the app on your phone and you no longer have to go through checkout. Scan and go. One of Walmart's new features. So basically, what you do is you put this app on your phone, and your phone scans the barcode. So then it takes out whatever your Walmart card debit card, whatever card you're using, it starts charging the card. If you put it back on the shelf, it deducts it from the card. So what happens is now we no longer, this is a fast way we can get in and get out. We don't have to stand in line. Well, what happens when we stand in line? Occasionally we talk to the person next to us in line while we're waiting. We have a conversation, we socialize. We talk about various topics. We talk about things that are going on in the world, things that are going on in our backyards and our communities. Why don't they want to socialize? We don't question those things. We think it's cool, it's innovation, it frees us up, we get more time. More time to do what? To be bombarded with psychological warfare on every social media platform? To listen to your TV, to all the one-sided things? Let's talk about the World Cup. I go down. I'm a fan. I watch it. You know what pissed me off about the World Cup? Something that pissed me off about something else earlier this year? The advertisements that are being run. And you say, well, what are you talking about? Anybody see the World Cup advertisements? How they just dog America? Oh, you can watch us, you can root for us. Since you didn't make it. Maybe we'll see you in the next one. That's a form of programming, guys. That's a form of indoctrination. That's teaching people to ignore the United States. In fact, that's teaching, hey, you root for another country. We got all these trophies. We've won the most trophies. Root for us. Guys, don't catch it. You don't question it when you see it. It's like the Winter Olympics. I can't remember what it was, an advertisement for some sporting company. And it was so unpatriotic that it made me stop watching the Winter Olympics. Because of the network, the propaganda they were pushing, nobody questioned it. They just seen, oh, it's a sporting goods commercial. That was so anti-patriotism, anti-America. This is all part of the agendas. It's all part of, oh, you're not going to comply? We'll make you hated. You will comply. But they're doing it just not to our countries. They're doing it to others. Then we have world leaders that are in charge of those countries that fully support the idea. They've created so much division. Why do we want division? Well, Sang Soo said it pretty clearly why you push division. You divide the nation. You divide the people. That's the first step of warfare. Cause the division, flood it with refugees, damage its infrastructures, while everybody's fighting against each other. Push it to the point it causes a civil war, civil unrest. While they're fighting amongst themselves, the invading army can sweep in and clean up the mess. Wake up. Start questioning. Start realizing we're being played. And we have elected officials at all levels that are promoting a UN agenda, not an American agenda, not a Brazilian agenda, not a European agenda, or whatever country you're in. They're not pushing for you people. They want to control everybody. You know, they used to blow off the one world government type stuff. Oh yeah, never happened. Nobody will allow it to happen. I'm beginning to eat crow on that because I see it. I mean, we still will dictate whether it happens or don't. You know, there's so much that we have to wake up to. There's, and it's time that, especially parents out there, it's time you say enough's enough. If this college is going to teach these things, you're not going to that college. If you want to go to that college, you're paying for it. But if I'm paying to help you go to college, you're going to a college that's going to teach you an education. If this school system is not teaching you the proper education, I'm going to put you in a school system that teaches you a proper education. That doesn't teach Common Core UN bullshit. That doesn't diminish our history because, oh, it's a blemish on what America is today. No, America is what it is today because of our history, the good and the bad. And yes, we've done bad things. So many people find a way to use these things against all of us. They use the labels. The labels is the biggest form of division. And we create them. We allow ourselves to create them. I'm a truther. I'm a YouTuber. I'm a gamer. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I am an alternative media. Wow. Then we get divided within our communities and we create sub-communities of the thing. And we further divide. Like I said, they're preaching and cramming down our throats diversity. Diversity means division, not equality. They say it's equality, but where's the equality? To div is to divide. Learn root words and meanings of prefixes in words. Do not get caught up in the word games that they like to play. As much as the internet's beautiful, it is probably one of their biggest weapons against us. You know, and that's something you guys, wow, if you guys only knew. But it can be one of our biggest tools. One man's junk is another man's treasure, right? It can be a tool. And many of us use it just for that. Having intellectual conversation, free thinking conversation, making people to question things, planting the seeds that will make people question things. Well, when we start doing too much, oh, you're fake news. They want to create new labels. They want to find more ways to censor us or force us to leave. They want to trick us here. We're gonna let you monetize, make all this money. They'll let us make money for a while, make good money. Then comes in the censorship. Then comes in the rules that they never enforced. And make you conform to their ideology, their philosophy, their illusion. To where you either choose to keep going and keep having your videos demonetized, censored all the time, or you stop monetizing them. Well, when you stop monetizing them, okay, you think you got away? Hey, Daggers, spouse. When you think you got no way, oh, we're going to give you community strikes for something. Whoa, we're going to shadow ban you. We're going to mess with the algorithms. We're going to play with your numerous. Why? Because we're taught having huge following is great. Having all these likes is great. That's a form of manipulation in itself. We forgot quality over quantity. With quality is I can have a wonderful conversation with people in my chat room. Because it's not 700, 800, 1,000, 10,000 people to where I've got to set my chat to slow mode just so I can barely keep up with a fraction of the comments. So therefore I'm not interacting. So we think we have to have all these numbers to get our message spread. No. We forget some of the basic simple principles because we've been indoctrinated. We've been taught that you need to have all these followers. You need to have all these subscribers. And you don't catch the fact that, you know, it is a form of manipulation. It's actually a form of magic. I'll keep it all the way real in that aspect. All these emotes, icons, they're sigils. They're meant to trigger, cause and effect. They're meant to make you respond. Oh, I'm feeling sad today. Oh, I didn't like what he said, so I'm hitting the thumbs down button. Oh, I like what he said. I'm hitting the thumbs up button. You guys don't catch that and understand that. How much you are actually being manipulated on an everyday basis from imagery. This is all programming, a form of programming, a form of indoctrination. Till we get to the point in all of our communities, we start asking, well, who do we trust? Who can we trust? You know who you trust? Start learning to listen to yourself and trust yourself in what you feel. That's who you trust. Don't trust me. Don't trust anybody else. Learn to trust yourself. Then you'll know who you can trust. Then you'll know who's speaking the truth. Then you know who doesn't want to manipulate you and control you and lead you down very dark areas. We allowed ourselves to divide us to where we have no concept of I'm an American citizen. Instead, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Asian, I'm Hispanic, white, brown. I'm Republican, Democrat, and the label game is. I can just keep on going probably for 12 hours just rattling off the labels that everybody uses. Yeah, guys, that's how bad it is. And we divide ourselves into those. You know what happens when we do that? We start losing the concept of self. We start losing our self identity. The very thing that makes us unique, the very thing that when we're actually listening to ourselves, that makes us question something somebody said. Why'd he say that? Why'd that trigger me? Why'd that bother me? Why is it all of a sudden I'm only going to vote red? Don't vote blue. And those that follow blue, I'm only going to vote blue. Don't vote red. See the division? See how they're pitting us against each other? Uh, Be Rich did an awesome video that you all should check out because he's right. Why is it round about this very same time this time last year, so many of us were so burnt out on all the stuff that we were watching, investigating, following, researching, that we all burn out almost around the same time. All that negativity, all the division. It happened to a lot of us. We didn't, and he called it for what it was, the psyop. We're living in a psyop every day. Everything that's trending becomes is a psyop. It's meant to draw you in. How we pick our followers. I'm only going to stick with this mindset, one mindset. That's very wrong thinking. Because when you stick to the one mindset, you miss the other part of the mindset that makes you question things. Everybody. You should be listening to everybody. and we're relying on ourselves to make sense of it, what we feel is accurate. And when we find that thing that makes us question something, stop. Why did I feel a certain way towards that? Because when we start putting ourselves in these labels and categories, we're not only dividing ourselves, we're becoming uniformed. We're becoming a hive mind of one mindset that doesn't question, not even self. And that is a very dangerous road. Because that what allows all this UN agendas to come in. And they do it so elegantly. Junk, junk for clunker or cash for junk, whatever it was. You know, here, turn in your junk cars. We'll give you cash. More than what it's book value, right? So everybody wants to jump on it. Well, actually, we're in a recession, but it allows me to get a newer car. Well, those newer cars has got so much wiring in them. If you really knew, you wouldn't want a new car. But then it's all in the name of environmentalism. You know, the global warming. When in the fact is, there's been global warming since the very beginning of this world. It's natural. It's actually a natural process. We have an impact, but the Earth has a bigger impact than we do. And when we get too big for our britches, yeah, well, we can see what happened to a certain Mayan civilization. Because we do have an impact, but not as big as an impact as they say. This Earth goes through cycles. It's the way this Earth goes through these cycles is the way it rejuvenates itself. But they'll use that as a weapon too. They'll say everything we do is a form of consumption. It's a form of taxing the environment. So we need to make you guys live in smaller houses now. Oh, you're using too much energy. We need to dictate how much energy you can use. How much consumption, how much fuel you can use. We don't want you commuting by vehicles to school anymore in the colleges. We want you to commute by bike. We want you to pay a tax for being abusive to the environment. But the whole time, in that whole Paris Accord thing, the biggest violator of pollution was China. And they were pretty much exempt till 2030. They weren't having to pay huge, hefty fines. They weren't even told they needed to clean up. Oh no, America, you're the biggest violator, or one of the biggest violators. Funny how all that works, isn't it? It's funny when we step back and start actually questioning these things. You know, why are they pushing so much of the Marxism, socialism, when we've got history that shows us what happens to both things? We've seen countries that go those routes. They implode after a time. You know, we do have real issues. We have corruption in every facet of our every organization and every system. We have people that have claimed to be patriots, claimed to be constitutionalists, but they pledge their allegiance not to the US but to the UN or to the G6. and they start pushing their policies into legislation, little bit at a time, hidden in these huge stacks that nobody has time to read through. So they get little at a time introduced because there's something in there that we have to have. So we'll slide that in because it will get passed. There's many changes that need to be made. The problem is, we can never do that when everything's been set the way it is. When we had a Supreme Court during Obama administration that made a ruling that corporations can donate as much money as they choose to a campaign because they are not a U.S. citizen. They are a U.S. citizens, plural, so therefore the Constitution doesn't apply. That was the biggest mistake the Supreme Court had ever made because it gave the corporations the ability to never have to honor our Constitution and Bill of Rights because they are exempt from it because they're not a single U.S. citizen. So therefore, those laws don't apply. So therefore, let's talk about influencing the election while they want to push their indoctrination of one person or a group of people. Let's talk about all these corporations that are foreign owned that exist here in our country. Oh, we don't want to talk about that, do we? When in fact you're allowing this corporation that's owned by such and such country to dump millions into that label's campaign. Dump millions in advertisements to promote sanctuary cities, to promote allowing refugees in. They twist everything. They take anything that is good and they pervert it and twist it. Make it sound like it's something grand, something humanitarian. When you start looking at it, breaking it down, getting to the root of it, it ain't nothing but evil. That's meant to enslave just not our country, but the world. So what do we do? We always come back to that question. What do we do? How do we reach people? You know what you're not, some of you are probably not going to like what I say. Quit trying to reach people. Do. Keep talking. Because the problem is we're trying to reach the youth. The youth haven't experienced life yet. They haven't experienced so many things that we have. They need to experience, because when they start experiencing things, they're going to start questioning things. Our job is to do what we're doing, talking about these things, putting it out there. They will stumble across it when the time's right. Then they're going to start questioning a hell of a lot more. Then they're going to find the like-minded individuals in their youth generation. They'll start causing the ripples. They'll start seeing. It's taken some time, but I'm starting to see it. With quite a few of the millennials and the generation before them, I'm starting to see them come out, start to question. We need to keep doing what we're doing, talking about these issues, putting it out there, promoting each other. Even the ones that we might disagree with because it's forcing people to question things. Because every now and then, that person we disagree with is going to say something that we may have missed, or not thought of yet, or didn't realize. We're living in a day and age where we're so programmed and taught and indoctrinated to judge. Well, we shouldn't be judging anybody. We should be listening to ourselves. Because we might not agree. There might come a time later down the road that you might agree with that person because you've experienced some things. We forget that word. We forget experience. We forgot that we had to experience things. It's like being a parent, which I have not experienced yet. But those that have, they can tell you after the second kid what they did wrong with the first. And if they have three, it's like it becomes easier because they've experienced it with the first one, then the second one, then the third one. They've experienced those things that I have no experience in. I have the experience of watching my friends, my brother raise their kids. I don't have kids, so I don't have that experience. But I know watching them, and I know something I've learned, and probably the hardest thing for any of us to admit. We all hate saying our parents were right. But the more I've experienced things in life, the more, I see why they said that. I get it now. Yep, they were right. I just wasn't ready to accept it then. I hadn't experienced things. So we need to be able to use our free thinking, our free minds, and share those experiences. When asked, well, why do you feel that way about this? What drew you to this conclusion? Point out the broken things in the systems, the subtle manipulations. Don't get in an argument about it, because more likely they're not going to be ready to accept it anyway, because they haven't experienced those things. But what you did and what you had done, you did what you're supposed to. You told them. They heard it. The seed is planted. Something's going to happen down the road that's going to make them remember what you had said. It's going to be like deja vu. It's like, oh, I get it now. Wow, that person was so right. Or that person was so wrong. Because we can be wrong too. Nothing wrong with being wrong. That's part of being human. It's accepting and admitting that we were wrong. Hey, I was wrong. You know, some of you don't think we can make differences and make change and cause change. Well, I see it. I seen it this week. For those that know the last video I did, you know what I'm talking about. With all the things I pointed out, that me and Free Spirit Press News pointed out, things that were brought up in our conversations, things that was brought up in our chat. I see what's going on in Tucson. I see a whole complete change. Not saying it was because of what we said, but what others have been saying. It's made people question. We do have an impact on things. People do tune in. You know, word spreads. It just sometimes takes time. Sometimes we're so caught up in the work we're doing and the research and stuff, we miss it. And we shouldn't even be looking for it, honestly. Because if we're looking for it, we're expecting a reward. Looking for something's like expecting a reward. We want that gratification. Shouldn't be no gratification. Shouldn't be no reward. You're doing it because You're informing people. You believe in what you're doing. You believe you can bring about change. Because when you start looking for it, you start feeding the ego, which is very dangerous. I don't knock how people do their stuff. There's certain things I don't care for. I don't care about the fear, how people use fear. But why do they do it? Well, because they've seen somebody get so popular, such a huge following that he's more of a cult following right now. Because he used fear. He used fear porn. People flocked to it. Other people's copied it and mimicked it. To the point now, most people are numb to it, a lot of people get turned off by it now. Because it became a way to draw people in. And you didn't realize what was even happening. And for those that still do it, hey, if it's working, keep doing it. I, on the other hand, will not. Because I know what fear is. I know it is a weapon. It's a way to control somebody, manipulate them. Hence why I said cult following with a certain individual. But I know more about that than I've ever talked about. Because I actually know a person that worked for him. And I seen all the changes that came about after she started working for them. I seen how the lighting stuff's changed, how the psychological stuff was being used more and more. We should always question everything. Take nothing at face value. You know, some people say, "Oh, you're just paranoid." No, I'm not paranoid. If I was paranoid, that's be given into fear. It's me listening to myself, going by what I'm feeling led to talk about, feeling led to research, listening to others as well. And shout out to my ex, I got the message. And I will listen. I always valued your opinion. It's kept me from doing stupid things in the past. Because sometimes we don't realize we start doing all this research, digging in. We don't realize how much negativity we're starting to pick up. We don't realize subtle changes that are happening until somebody points it out or somebody sends a message via somebody else. Hey, you need to take a break from what you're doing, whatever you're working on. Message received. Got it. But yet, if we don't listen to self and we don't question things, even about self, we'll keep going down until something bad happens. That slaps us across the face and gives us that reality check. Oh crap, I didn't realize it happens because that's how much we're bombarded with. That's how much information we're bombarded with. That's how much, when we start delving down these rabbit holes, which I try not to. I use rabbit holes as amusement for my own fun and games, a break from things, because, hey, you can find some interesting stuff down some rabbit holes. But if you don't have the ability to listen to yourself, or you don't have cool friends or cool exes, you can get caught up in a lot of negative stuff that just clings to you. It's all a form of indoctrination. It's all a form of psychological warfare, psyop program, whatever label we want to give it. They all know it. They all know how to use it. They know how to manipulate people, move people. You know, one of the images I use is the chessboard with supposedly God and Satan and angels and demons as chess pieces. It is a world stage. We have people playing chess, and guess what? We're the pawns. But they've forgotten the most important thing. The pawn is the most dangerous piece on the chessboard. Always has been. Any true grandmaster chess player will tell you the most dangerous piece on the board is not the queen, it is the pawn. It is the full court gesture. Why? They sit there, they see it all, they watch it unfold, they're ignored. Nothing wrong with being the pawn, but it's villainized. It's bad to be the pawn. And it can be. It's about knowing how to use your tools, knowing how to use your skills. What are you good at? Knowing to question things. See, you know how indoctrination, psychological programming, and all that fail? It fails when you have free thinkers, people that can question, that will question everything, never taking everything at face value. Because they start breaking free of those bonds that have been put on them to enslave them. They're starting to question, and that's bad. Catholic Church, in its infancy, created a term for it: heretic, heathen, because they were free thinkers. They were the common folk, the very ones that would question things. Some of the great philosophers were atheists because they questioned everything. But they don't want to tell you that. You know, I've always had the opinion, and I still feel the opinion's right. We need to have faith in things. We need to have a spiritual connection with something. But it should be personal. It should be, that connection should be sacred. Like I said, I'm spiritual because I've seen and have experienced religious dogma at its finest. How it divides people, teaches people to judge people, condemn them because of their beliefs, their ideologies, their way of life. And it divides us. We create, how many different dominations of Christianity is there? Each a division and a separate entity of itself. And that can be said with the pagan religions. How many different pagan religions are there? They're just as divided. But we don't look at that. We think of pagans because we're taught they're all Satanists. They're all evil. Why? Because that's what we were taught. But yet they're not. Or they're Luciferians, which is a bad name to Satanists. Because, hello, there's two different groups. You have Luciferians and you have Satanists. They have two different dogmatic belief systems. You guys don't even see this division and separations within those communities because you're taught they're evil, so therefore you don't care. You categorize them all as one, but yet they're the same as you in the Christian faith that have so many dominations, so many separations and divisions. No one questions because each side's taught you're right, you're wrong. And they'll argue back and forth who's right or who's wrong. When who am I judge somebody's spiritual connection with God? whatever name or persona they choose to call their God by. Because in the end, I can squash all that who's right, who's wrong answer, because none of us is going to know until the day we die. So why are we arguing about it? Why aren't we just letting people be who they will be? But it goes back to what I said, what we were talking about earlier with cops and stuff. We blame the group instead of the bad apple. Yes, the bad apples can cause the rest of the fruit to rot. But doesn't mean that somebody didn't come around and picked out all the rotten fruit and saved the good fruit. Ooh, funny concept, right? People do that. People sometimes police their own. But yet we blame the whole group for just that one 20, 30, 40, 100 bad apples. It's just another form of indoctrination and manipulation. Just so we divide ourselves, so we no longer trust people based on a label. Something for you guys to think about, because in the end, that's up to you. What you choose to take from this, what you're drawn to take from it, what you're led to take from it, what you feel is right to be taken from this. Some of you may say, oh man, that's just one crazy psycho dude. Look at him, he's tatted out. He's got to be evil, right? He's got to be a biker. How do you know? Have you sat down and had a conversation with me? Have we sat down and talked about the things I've experienced, what I've went through in life? No. You only know by the first, and that's the other key point. We always judge by the first impression. And what's wrong with that concept, guys? Because that first impression is exactly what we've been indoctrinating to make. You see a person with with tattoos, he's either a biker, felon, whatnot, or he's law enforcement, military, or the dregs of society. Oh, they got all that piercing, so they must be gothic. First impressions. Remember, your first impressions, just because you see them, have you talked to them? Have you had a conversation with them? More than one, because it takes more than one conversation to get to know somebody. Sometimes it takes, a lifetime of conversations. Our friends can relate to that. As we get older, we get our own families. We're not spending all that time conversing with our friends. So when we catch up, have a picnic or barbecue, we converse about things that's happened in our lives. Just a short period of it, because we've experienced so much. We've changed so much. I've seen people that, wow, I can't believe the change. But, it's like, man, you're not the same person I remember. So why judge somebody by the first impression? Why not get to know them? Because that's what they don't want you to do. They don't want you to get to know people. They don't want you to get to know different communities, different religions. They always want to divide us. They always want to pit us against each other. Words to think about. I hope you guys enjoyed. For those that tuned in, thank you for watching. I will see you on the next one, and the next few actually is going to be about the broken systems. I'm going to start getting into all the systems. Legal system, education system, every system that we know, that we use as a label, point out the core root broken problems of them. Try to point out where we went, how it's went wrong. Because it's time we start talking about the broken systems. Because those broken systems are being used against us to manipulate us. So that'll be doing a few of those this week and the next coming weeks. And you guys know me. I go off feel if I'm in the mood or feel drawn to speak about something else. Look for it. That's why I don't schedule my streams, because it's almost impossible. I don't know when I feel like talking about something. Like tonight, spur of the moment. A few things that came to mind that I wanted to talk about, that I did a little research on, and I wanted to share. So, then it takes me about 30 minutes to share all the links on all the platforms I'm on before I go live. So, that's why I don't schedule streams, because it's just, much like the title says, Rambling of the Chaotic Mind, my life can be a bit chaotic sometimes. You guys have a good night, and I'll catch you on the next one.